But it starts us with the idea of turning to the Lord of beauty. Means, at first for most of us, it's turning towards the veil of the Lord of beauty. Because usually we will not see the Lord of beauty. We will see that she is covered in, could be a beautiful veil, or a drab veil, or an old veil, or a torn veil, but the beloved is hidden usually behind the veil. And Rumi is saying, in the Fihi Ma Fihi, he says, this is the Quran, and you must treat it like a veiled beloved. And you must serve it. Serve it means you must be devoted, and even though you don't see the beloved, you must become devoted, and you must serve the beloved who is under a veil. This is what he says in Fihi Ma Fihi. In it, what is in it, is a book, a prose book that he wrote. But in this poem, he is saying, a particular poem, he's saying that which astonishes you in the faces of the beautiful is actually the light of the sun shining through the three colored glasses, three colored windows, if you prefer. And the light appears to be colored because of the influence of the effect of the colored windows. If you should get beyond seeing the light this way and should see the pure light, that would be what astonishes you all the more. So, make it your habit, to make it your nature to be able to see the pure light, so that when these colored windows are destroyed, you will not be somebody who is blind. And that indicates that there's some dependence on the way we have learned to see things, and that we are trusting in the perceptions that we are using, and we must awaken another perception that we have, which is the perception of the heart, called basirat. And this very technical language, remember, this is very, it's in the theology and the religion, but it is also a doctrine about perception. Because too quickly people reduce everything to just a kind of vague notion of love, or a vague notion of, let's say, mindfulness. I don't mean it's vague, you can use it, but what's vague about it is that it doesn't address the fact that we haven't opened our eyes. We think our eyes are open, but they're not open, you see? The real eyes. So this is what he's trying to address by using this idea of blind versus seeing. I said that the reason you should turn towards the Lord of Beauty is that it's a much more graceful ride to the afterlife than some other Lord, Lord of power, Lord of vengeance, whatever, you see. This is a very graceful ride, because anywhere you go, you could learn to see beauty and cultivate that, and you would become the servant of the merciful, because the beauty is also called the merciful. Beauty is also has the idea of ethics, doesn't it? And good qualities, you see. Do you remember the other day I was telling you about a verse in Quran that had to do with, again, with beauty, because there's a word in Quran, it's taghut. So taghut's an interesting idea in Quran, because it implies a false god, but it means a broad sense of having been deceived by the veil rather than enlightened by the veil. Okay? So this is what it means. So in this verse, he's talking about the people who have turned away from taghut. You could say they've turned away from deception. You see? They've turned away from deception.
Because the noun of taghut, to commit is and that's the person who's lost.
Yes, they're lost. And Taghut is like an entified notion that has to do with those, let's call them idolatrous sensibilities and perceptions that trap a person in what is apparent and which will serve to fatten their own sense of themselves rather than reduce their sense of themselves, you see? So whoever has avoided that, you may recall God says, وَلَهُمُ الْبُشْرَى فَبَشِّرْ عِبَادِي الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
أولئك الذي هداهم الله أولئك هم أولو الألباب. You remember this verse? Were you here when we were talking about this? Yeah. So what he says is, for those people who have turned away and are on the path of turning towards beauty, because we already established that that's what they're doing. They're turning from the deception of the appearance, and they have instead, how do we know they're turning towards beauty? Because he says, فَلَهُمُ الْبُشْرَى, on them is the great news. The great news of what? Of salvation, just like in the Christian tradition. The good news, the great good news, the good tidings. For them are the good tidings. فَبَشِّرْ عِبَادِي, let there be good tidings upon those who are of my servants. You see, my perceptive servants. Alladina yastami'un al-qawla, those who are listening to the words, meaning the appearance of things, or the words of Quran, literally the words of Quran, the words, or the divine words as they're manifesting. فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ. See? And who are following the most beautiful of those words. And whether they are words or things that are saying. So they are following what is beautiful. They are not choosing out of their own internal ugliness, they are not choosing the evil, ugly words that they read into the Quran. Or even they are not choosing the severe words of the Quran. They are choosing the most beautiful meaning of all the meanings. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ هَدَاهُمْ اللَّهُ. They are the ones that God has shown true guidance to them. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. So they are the ones who have seen the inner truth of things. Isn't that what we're talking about now? They've seen the inner truth, the core of the thing. So that's exactly what we're talking about again today. I'm going to read to you a few lines from the English and then turn to the Persian for the key lines. Irresistible beauty, originating in the formless world, came into this world like an inspired libertine. She raised her flag above the province of beauty and confounded the causes binding our world. Sometimes she rides the royal steed of beauty. Sometimes she wields the shining sword of language. As a person, she is called a ravishing beauty. Within language, she is known as eloquence. Whether saint or king, whether dervish or prophet, all of them are subject to her command. Now, the next two lines are the ones that I want to look at with the commentary. What is in the beauty of those of lovely aspect? It's not just earthly beauty So tell me, what is it? Except for the real, there could not be such ravishment, and God has nothing and no person as partner. So these two lines, they are lines in the Gulshan-e-Raz 626 and 627. What is in the beauty of those of lovely aspect? It's not just earthly beauty. So tell me, what is it? Except for the real, there could not be such ravishment, and God has nothing and no person as partner. Now the commentary is Lahiji, so this is from the Mafati Ali Jaz fi Shari Gulshan-e-Raz. Keys to the eloquent elucidation of the Garden of Mystery. So the first line, he says, Darune husne rui nikuan chist. Na on husnast tanha gui on chist. Darune husne rui nikuan chist. Na on husnast tanha gui on chist. یعنی اندرون حسن و خوبی روی ارباب حسن و جمال چیست که تسخیر دلهای عاشقان شیدا می نماید؟ آنچه آن فریبندگی و تصرف می نماید تنها نه آن حسن است، چه حسن که عبارت از مناسبت است در بسیاری از افراد انسانی یافت می شود که روبایندگی ندارند. پس بگویی که آن که در صورت حسن دلبران و خوبان است آن چیست؟ So the commentator, looking at this first line, what is in the beauty of those of lovely aspect? It's not just earthly beauty, so tell me, what is it? And the commentator here says, in other words, in this beauty and charm of the faces of the possessors of such beauty, what is it which dominates the hearts of those who are frenzied in love? Because that allurement and dominance cannot be just in the beauty. Because beauty, which is an expression that means perfect symmetry and balance, can be seen in very many of the individuals of humanity, who yet do not necessarily possess such ravishment. So therefore, tell me, that which is in the faces of those beautiful heart snatchers, what is it? Tell me. Okay? Now the second line, so in the first line we do find out, which is true, that the general meaning of husn in the Quran is not just this idea of tanasub. It means perfect proportion, we would say. It means perfect balance. It applies also to Islamic and Sufi ethics, with the idea that you should go neither too far in the direction of indulgence, nor too far in the direction of restraint. That the Muslim path is a path that is a middle path that permits earthly pleasure, and it requires turning to God, but also retaining a relationship with the world and seeing the beauty in the world. So it's very much on the topic we were on earlier. And so he's questioning, and he says, in fact, this quality of proportion is found in actually quite a number of human beings who do not have the quality of ravishment that the special individuals have, certain special individuals. Okay? In fact, arguably, all of humanity is beautiful based on the Quranic verse that we created your forms to be beautiful forms, right? We've talked about this in the last meeting. Now the next line, the last one we'll do tonight before we take questions, is except for the real, there could not be such ravishment, and God has nothing and no person as partner. جز از حق می نیابد دلربایی که شرکت نیست کس را در خدایی. جز از حق می نیاید دلربایی که شرکت نیست کس را در خدایی. یعنی جذب و تصرف دلها که موصوف با سعت لا یسعنی اردی ولا سمایی اند، به جز از حق نمی آید، زیرا که با حکم لا مؤثر فی الوجود الا الله در خدایی که تصرف و تأثیر است، هیچ کس را شرکت نیست و تأثیر در جمعی صور فعل حق است و غیر حق را هیچ تأثیری و تصرفی نیست و جاذب و متصرف در صورت حسن غیر حق نیست و جمال مطلق است که در صور جمیله مظاهر ظاهر گشته دلربایی و تصرف و جذب قلوب می نماید و تسخیر همه می کند. So he says, in other words, this allurement, this attractiveness, and this dominance of the hearts of the human beings, which can be qualified or characterized by the vastness in God's statement, I am not embraced by my earth nor by my heavens. That vastness is only of the truly real. It does not belong to any other than the truly real. Because according to the dictum, there is no one having effect in all of existence except for Allah, except for true reality. all control, all dominance, and all effects are in Godhead, meaning in God's nature. And no one has a partnership or a share in that. And the effects in the totality of the forms, all of them are the action of true reality. And other than true reality, meaning God, there is no effect and no dominance whatsoever. So the one who attracts, the one who dominates in the forms of those of beauty are none other than true reality, meaning that property, which is having this dominance. And the absolute beauty, it is the absolute beauty which is seen in the beautiful forms, in the places where they manifest and become apparent, which cause such heart sickness and the dominance of love and attraction of these hearts, which continue to dominate them thereafter. Okay, so this is the approximate translation of his words. And so what we see is, again, the logic in Sufism for the doctrine of ishq-i majazi, approximate love, is that in fact you are trying to ask yourself, what do I find most attractive? Now, for some people, it could be anything, but most likely it will intensify in a person's perception of another human being. And the most intense relationship thereof would probably be a romantic relationship where a person feels fully engaged with someone and maximizes their perception of beauty. And what he's saying is, in this case, they may thereby have the ability to lift the veil. Now, you remember, you have some mystics like Rabi al-Adawiya. She said, well, I'm not interested in ishq-i majazi, in approximate love. I'm interested in proximate, direct love with God, you see? But for most people, this is very difficult because they don't realize they will just be telling themselves their own historical and personal account of what's going on. They will not be able to escape that. So the idea of something being so beautiful that it causes great and profound love is that it starts to break down their self-reference, their sense of egoism, and it allows them to start to see, shining through this other person, the divine nature. Now in Sufism, another way we could say it, and that our teacher says it, coming back to this idea that we talked about earlier of the internal beauty, and came up just coincidentally when Rahaf mentioned the buraq. We're talking really about the buraq in a sense, which means the means that you're going to take to find your way to God. And I was telling her earlier that the buraq, of course, is the means to accomplish the miraj, right? And I again quoted to you from Rumi, Chist miraj falak in nisti, ashiqan ra mazhab din nisti. What is this ascension into the different skies, meaning all the way up to know God? to knowing God. And it is nothing other than this non-being, meaning this place inside where we can let go of those walls of self-reference. So this is meditation, this is zikr, where internally, so now we've gone from seeing beauty outside to looking inside and seeing beauty, to turning towards the Lord of Beauty, and one starts to see this word that we brought up earlier, tajalli. One starts to see the manifestations. And many of you have had this experience where you see beautiful manifestations. And you should remember the Prophet, peace be upon him, his words is, O Lord, increase in me knowledge. See? Rabbi zedni ilman, Rabbi zedni ilman, Rabbi zedni ilman. Meaning, thank you, beautiful knowledge of yourself as a fountain, yourself as a sun, yourself as colored lights. But I know you are greater than this, you see? Please show me more and more and more, and the person that is moving in that direction. But we should not underestimate at the very least, the preparatory power of the beauty of this world. One can go sit in a glade, in a field, and meditate upon the flowers of springtime. And that would be a beautiful face, wouldn't it? One could look into the eyes of a child and realize greater wisdom than what we possess. Because sadly, we've been burdened by self-knowledge, and the child may not yet have such a burden, and we see such freshness and beauty. You see, so we in the whole idea in Sufism of turning towards the Lord of Beauty is understanding the Lord of Beauty actually has a form. In fact, it has numerous forms, doesn't it? Wherever you turn, there is the face of God. These are the form. And the face, as was pointed out earlier, is if we look into it carefully, we will see what he called the actuality. We would say in metaphysical terms and in theological terms, we would see the divine names. So the Sufi stories are all about beauty, about seeing the divine in beauty. Or in the case of Majnun, another story, as you recall, is he has already seen Layla, but has he had any kind of romantic physical connection with Layla? No, see? Like crazy, huh? I mean, it doesn't sound like whatever these sites are, looking for your date online or something. This is like Majnun is like for years. He saw Layla like once or something, right? And did he see her behind the veil? He saw her. He got to see her a little bit behind the veil, right? And now he's walking like in the story. He's walking in the desert, and he's walking in the desert. And some people come up and they push him. They're very angry. And they say, we were saying our prayer over here and you walked in front. And for those of you who don't know, you're not supposed to walk in front of people when they're saying the prayer. So they are angry, and he said, well, I'm very sorry. I didn't notice you saying your prayer. But let me ask you one question. You were praying to God. My question is, how did you notice me walking in front of you? Do you guys know this story? Yeah, very beautiful story. So yeah, I was in love with an earthly woman who I've never even touched. I just saw her face once. And that's why I'm crazy walking in the desert and I don't notice you. Answer me one question. You are saying the prayer, and how did you notice me? It's very, very sharp criticism, don't you think?
I may have missed the larger context for this, but is there not a way that beauty leads us towards? I'm thinking of the line in Hafez about the locks of hair. Is that the same?
About the what?
About the locks of hair.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Is that the same concept?
Well, the thing about well, you have a good point. So I think what you're referring to is گفتم که بوی زلفت گمراه عالمم کرد. گفتا اگر بدانی هم او ات رهبر آید. So Hafiz is talking to God, and he says, because you see, when you mention the locks, again, this is technical language. So the technical language would be the hair, the curls, they refer to the divine names.
Okay.
Specifically, because we can see this in Shabbastari, in the commentaries, and going all the way back 1,000 years. This is what is the idea? Is there's the face of the beloved, which is the essence, the true nature. And then there's the beautiful hair, where in the East, when they wash it, then they'll put fragrance into it, see? So put musk usually into it, like a perfume kind of musk. And it's curly, and now it's kind of shiny, and it smells beautiful. But it's covering the face, see? So God is characterized, for the sake of analogy, as having a face. Now, the mullahs, I should say, are angry about this. See, they say, how can you say he has a face? And they say, well, wajah means face. You see, huh? Rahafjan can mean face. And so when God says, to God belongs the east and the west, wherever you turn, there is the face of God. If you saw somebody with curly hair from the back, you'd say, well, I didn't get to see her face. Actually, I got to see her curls, wouldn't you say?
Right.
So but he actually has a face there. So if you could, you would actually get around to where you could see the face. And the earlier commentary of the poem is that you would actually then probably, wouldn't you start walking a little faster? Right, you're on the sidewalk and you say, I'm going to walk a little faster, and you get up to where you could walk fast enough, and you turn and you say, oh, I just saw the face, you see, right? Isn't it possible? Yeah. So that's what he's saying that you should do. Now Hafiz says there, he's making a rhetorical statement for the sake of you and I. He's saying, he's illustrating the issue. So he says, Guftam, I said to her, meaning to God, I said that the fragrance of your hair has led me astray in this world. Now do you see what it means? It means that the partial beauty of the fragrance of your hair.
It's like third removed.
Yeah, and in fact, it's the smell. Buye zulfat. It involves, when we talked about the three glasses, I was explaining to you, in my view, we don't need to make it complicated and metaphysical. We can simply say that any one of our perceptive faculties could deceive us. But being deceived from the self-deception of egotism is not such a bad thing. See, that's the position of Sufism. And I've already done that talk, which you can see online. People don't realize how deep and massive and hard the structures and subterranean structures of their egoism is. They underestimate the job by 100-fold at least. And the Sufis say, you just don't understand how big the project is. What you need is the sledgehammer of beauty. You thought you were going to just redecorate this structure. No. We have to tear down the structure, you see? And you underestimate what's involved with this. So the only thing that will work is something way more massive than your egotism, and that is beauty. Why? As these people have said, beauty belongs to God. And if you wish to succeed, you better turn towards the Lord of beauty. But Hafiz here says, well, that's not so easy. I said to her, meaning to God in this form of this woman, that the fragrance of your hair has led me astray in this world. Gufta, agar bedoni ham u atrah baroyad. She replies, she says, yes, but if you only understood, it too would have been your guide. You see? So is very beautiful. I usually say this at weddings. I say this to the wedding party, and I say it to the audience, so they understand the opportunity of matrimony is hopefully that one can find one's way to this kind of beauty. Now, obviously, the human being is a very fickle creature, and may go from a place that we would call infatuation. The problem with infatuation is a person may actually have interposed a halfway mirror along the way somewhere, and they're not actually seeing that person. They're seeing all of their own self-referential expectations projected and creating what for them, forcing the beauty of their own ego on that person, essentially. And so it's a shock when that ends. When infatuation ends, it would be a shock, because really one has, Rumi has a story about in the bazaar of the perfume sellers, there's a person who faints, and nobody can revive him. Doctors come and so forth. Then finally, somebody realizes that it's the brother of the garbage collector. So they go, and the brother of the garbage collector goes and he gets a piece of cow shit, of dog shit, and he brings it back and he puts it under the nose of the brother, and the brother awakes in the perfume bazaar. You see? So this is a condition, the ego, that if the nafs is in the bazaar of the perfume, it may be too early. There's not enough transformation to happen first, see? So first there would have to be some transition and so forth. But in the poem you're describing, it's a very good example, because God has answered and said, if you but knew, this also would have been your guide. Like you wish to see you wish to make the journey to the Lord of beauty, you may first, as Rumi said, have to make the journey to serving the veil of beauty. So Rumi makes it the veil. So in Fihi Mafi, he says the Quran, he says, is a veiled woman. And you must serve the veil for many years. And if you do, you would never be the one to pull it aside. Only she would pull it aside. Hey, do you know about this? It's in Fihi Mafi. It's a beautiful image. Huh? So Rumi's image about the meaning of the Quran. Now consider for a moment what that means. Aren't most people looking for very often harsh, self-referential, self-flattering, self-privileging references in the Quran? That is not a very productive thing to do. So one has to give that up, and one has to open oneself and serve what is there, and become soft enough and gentle enough that she shows her face to you. And what did I say in the earlier verse? She says, great news, the best of news for my servants. You see? Were you here? I don't know when I recited this verse. She says, those who hear the words and they always follow the most beautiful of what is in those words, upon them is the true guidance of God. And they are those who perceive the kernel in all things. You see, there's a Quranic verse, huh? So it's a very important verse. And this is exactly, so that turning to the Lord of beauty means turning towards the glad tidings, turning towards the mercy, making oneself beautiful enough to be able to see beauty